When a baby is born, he is given a certain amount of words to use in his lifetime. So every word you use is out of the total. If you speak too much, one day you might find yourself mute. Be economic with words. That's what Samuel Avital's grandfather told him, and Avital has lived this advice by becoming a mime. Raised in Morocco, a student of the Cabal, he went to Israel when he was 14 and lived there 10 years. From Galilee, he went to Paris, where he studied mime with Etienne de Creux. There he learned a new theorem. The mime actor must have in his head the material of a novelist and in his body the muscles of a gymnast, and above all, an ideal in his heart. In 1971, Avital established his own school of mime, Le Centre du Silence in Boulder, where thousands have studied and learned from his mastery. Avital was a special teacher at Longmont's Odyssey Theater Workshop series in September and transmitted the basic elements of his art, the art of remaining still, of being silent, so that every movement, every breath is meaningful.
And keep it there. Okay, I'm going to pass by, don't move it. I'm going to pass by and ask few of you, I will touch few of you to hold it, okay? Like you hold it. I like you also to hold it. And who else? And I like you please also to hold it. And I like you please also to hold it. The rest, relax. Don't I touch to hold it, hold it. I think it was a very receptive group. Very interesting to see how people react to certain techniques that we introduce. I can teach now because I know how to learn. I'm a student, actually. And now that I know how to learn, I can just by observing and reflecting, and I can learn, from everything. From children, mainly. You can learn a lot of things. Once you begin to know how to learn, every second you learn things. Learning is not from books, from life, from encounter with people. Go!
What about your anger?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. No, you are not angry, but you express anger.
Yeah.
Oh. You want to do it? Okay. Yeah, but her body, her face is not angry. Her face is nice, small.
How did you like the workshop this evening?
I really enjoyed myself. I've never done anything quite like it before.
I thought that he had a lot that brought us into actually participating in some of the things that he told us about, and I feel that's what a workshop should be all about.
I enjoyed the space and the inhibition, letting go of, the release of inhibition, and just the freedom. Super.
I must admit I came here with some apprehension because I didn't really think mine was that great, but it turned out to be really great. I really liked it a lot.
As long as there is a need for an artist like me there, I stay there. If I'm not any more useful, then I fly away. Take my gypsy suitcase and bye-bye.
Peak-to-Peak Highway got its name because it was originally designed to run from Long's Peak to Pikes Peak. But that portion of the highway between Estes and Allenspark has an interesting history all its own. It does not lie across a mountain pass, but rather parallels the divide and follows the valley path behind the first ranks of the Front Range. Located on this part of Highway 7 are the nature preserve and cabin of naturalist Enos Mills, known as the father of Rocky Mountain National Park. And there we learned from Bob and Enda Mills Kiley about the origins of this beautiful road.
Yes, in 1878, Elkanah Lamb, who then owned across the road from here, organized a toll road company, the Longs Peak Toll Road Company, and incorporated it and got a permit for a toll road from Estes Park to Allenspark. His notes here says, we commenced our toll road from Estes Park, Larimer County, to run south to Allenspark, a distance of 14 miles. We got the road about half done by the time snows fell. Where it was wet, he corduroyed it, laid poles lengthwise across the road so wagons wouldn't go into the muck. And of course they didn't shatter the cliffs like we are able to do today. He had to go as the topography allowed him. Later on, there's a notation that he gave it up because people evaded the toll gate and he didn't enjoy chasing them to collect his tolls.
How much does the road still resemble the path that it took in in 1878?
Well, right in here, it follows the same route because it's the only place for it to go. But from Fish Creek in Estes Park, it went up the side of Lily Mountain and snaked around there in front of the present location of Baldpate. And south of here, it turned east at Charles Eagle Plumes, down towards Little Elk Park and on. Later, with road machinery, why they could straighten it out, but he was just going where it was easiest to go.
Someone who has known this road from her childhood is Enda Mills Kiley, daughter of Enos, who maintains Mills Cabin, his books and photos, and the surrounding 200 acres as a nature preserve open year-round to visitors.
Bicycles, there were buggies, there were all kinds of vehicles that went down to meet the railroad and that brought people up to this area. And then, of course, after the cars, the Pierce Arrows and the Stanley steamers came, why then those cars met the trains. So there were many people coming to this area. Many people walked or rode a horse to get up here.
What kind of traffic do you get now from Peak to Peak Highway? Who comes to see you here?
Well, we have people from many foreign countries, people who live maybe beyond Allenspark, down the road, all the way to Massachusetts and Florida and all over the country. Come down the Peak to Peak Highway and stop at the places of interest along the way to enjoy hearing about a little history and to see the scenery. Double feature.
All along Peak to Peak between Estes and Allenspark are beautiful views of Longs Peak and Mount Meeker, but perhaps the most stunning of all is that from Mills Cabin, directly across Highway 7 from the foot of Longmont's namesake.
It's constantly changing. Every change in light, shadow, cloud, every movement of the sun makes a difference in the way Longs Peak looks. It never looks the same twice. I may have taken 100 pictures of it, and no two of them are alike.
You have the best view available here.
Well, it was picked by an expert in views.
Of Peak to Peak Highway, just 30 minutes from Longmont. It's really beautiful up here. Give it a try. This is Pat Bruington for Longmont Cable News, Channel 3.
It's a task that requires a degree of precision that pushes the limits of industrial technology. Disk drive manufacture, an industry that's rapidly becoming Longmont's #1 job generator. Disk drives have revolutionized the computer industry by allowing enormous amounts of information to be stored in a very small space, and just as important, by letting it be gotten at quickly. Now a new Longmont firm called Amcodyne is taking the revolution one step further. It has developed a hard disk drive in which one disk can be removed from the drive. As a result, a user can carry around an encyclopedia in a cartridge smaller than a phonograph record.
Essentially, our disk drive performs some of the same functions as a record player. In a record player, you've got the record, and then you've got a phonograph needle. And in a disk drive, you've got a disc with magnetic recording on it, and then you've got a head. Now, in the record player, the needle actually touches to get its information, where in a disk drive, it flies over the surface, very, very close. Matter of fact, so close that there is no way that the human eye could even detect that it is flying. It is that close. And if you take a 747 and fly it at 1 inch above the ground, that's the same relation that you would see in the magnetic recording head flying over the disk drive.
The recording heads aerodynamically fly a few millionths of an inch above the disc. At that height, even a speck of dust can cause a catastrophic crash. To avoid this, hard disk drives traditionally have been hermetically sealed, making it impossible to remove the disks. Amcodyne gets around this by putting the disc in a sealed cartridge with a port that pops open to admit the heads when the cartridge is put in the drive.
Even though we take a cartridge which contains this platter and we take it out, when we put it back in again, we have a tremendous air filtration system and airflow that will purge this, and it'll take it to a cleanliness so that it is as good or better than a sealed drive. But there is another very important thing. If you have a fixed drive and you're not taking the media out, then you can take the head and you can leave it in one location. If you're going to take the media out, you got to get the heads out of the way to be able to remove the media. And what Amcodyne developed is a revolutionary type of head system that allows us to go in and load the heads. Matter of fact, this little example shows a platter. This is a cutaway platter of the disc, and this is the recording head that I've been talking about. Now, that was done in the early days. What is different about the way in which we are handling it now with new technology is all of the fixed drives. They actually, although they fly the head, they start out with the head sitting on the media.
Sort of like the 747 taking off on a very slick runway by skidding along it on its belly.
Something very much like that. So you're sitting there and you've got a friction between the head and the media. And what happens is then you start the media up. And only when the media gets going fast enough is there enough of an air cushion to take the head up and ride on that air cushion, because that's what it actually does, is rides on an air cushion. So for almost 100 feet in a fixed drive, that head is dragging across the surface.
Amcodyne's removable 8-inch disc will hold 25 million characters, or 7,000 pages of information. That will permit users to do such jobs as store a catalog on a single disc and change the prices electronically. A doctor could store dozens of x-rays on a disc, and there are hundreds of other uses. Is there an end to the demand for memory?
We sure haven't seen it in the past, and I doubt it in the future. Even in your home, when you're with your phonograph records and audio tapes, it seems like people certainly, they want more information, they need it, they know how to use it better. The applications are increasing as fast as our ability to store additional information. So we're in a world that is going to just use more and more data and leverage the human mind even more as we go forward. So no, I think we're in an excellent market that is just going to grow and grow.
This is Paul Danish, Longmont Cable News.
In April this year, Tom McCoy was elected to fill the at-large council seat vacated by Richard Parker. Longmont Cable News spoke with Mr. McCoy, a teacher at Niwot High School, about his council duties, his job, and his Irish heritage.
Why did you want to be a council member?
Well, I wanted to be a member of council. For the last 15 or so years, I've been involved in the activities of planning and the long-range effect. And after serving some 11 years on the long range and 10 years on the Planning and Zoning Commission, I felt that now I wanted to get down where the real action and the final decisions were made to reflect the needs that I kept hearing from my constituency, my community, Longmont.
What are your duties as a council member?
In the kind of personality and so on that are elected to council, I think that we find their personalities kind of reflect what the community is looking for, whether it's a concern for the rate of growth in the community or the kinds of industry that we might draw in or discourage, or the kind of projects that should be going on, but basically how they want their tax dollars spent. And I think that our duty is to listen, to be serious about what the community is calling out for, and sometimes even crying out for, whether it's storm drainage or simply more recreation facilities or protection from the negative elements that might infringe on the community.
A large part of his interest in politics and his sense of duty, McCoy feels, comes from his Irish heritage.
I always refer to myself as the rough-hewn son of an Irish blacksmith. I grew up in eastern South Dakota and southern Minnesota. My father ran a small blacksmith shop in the backyard, so to speak, in the edge of town. And I spent a great deal of time around that shop and learning how to use tools and little skill of the hands, and along with it, he talked a great deal of politics, the canker in the body politics, so to speak, and along with my old Irish grandfather, his father, before him.
McCoy has maintained those interests. He now holds a master's degree in industrial science and hopes someday to complete a doctorate. He has taught for many years, including at Central Elementary, Main Street and Longs Peak Junior Highs, and now at Niwot High School for over 11 years.
I start out the morning with cabinet making, woodworking here at Niwot High School, and I move on into the metals, which deals with a great cross-section of metal ideas, architectural drafting and drawing. The kinds of projects that we get into in metal work, for instance, we forge certain types of things, not necessarily using a forge, but acetylene torches and the anvil and so on. In architectural drafting, each student develops his own set of blueprints from start to finish on a complete house. And in woodworking, the beginning students, of course, start out with a very small project, but as they progress, they move on up, and some of my advanced woodworking students are into larger cabinet-making type projects that turn out really quite attractive towards the end of the year.
Can you give me an example of that?
Well, they've built grandfather clocks, gun cabinets, cardenzas, coffee tables, desks, roll-top desk type things. Really some interesting projects.
These practical skills serve McCoy well, both in his teaching job and his council duties.
What are your feelings about growth around Longmont?
What the future is going to bring to us really is reflected in exactly what we're doing now and the kind of planning that's taken place. And so I think that my concern is that we keep a a certain amount of moderation. My old Irish grandfather used to talk about moderation and everything in moderation. So I think that that's basically carried through in my philosophy of good city government, good city planning.
This is Pat Bruington for Longmont Cable News, Channel 3. Look delicious, don't they? Hundreds of these donuts, danishes, strudels, and rolls are baked and promptly eaten each day at the Dainty Pastry Shop, a Main Street institution in Longmont for over 50 years. Longmont Cable News recently followed owner Jim Gummison around in the Dainty Pastry kitchen.
They start coming at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they usually don't stop until about noon hour. Then we even have some noon hour steadies too.
For donuts and pastry at noon?
Yeah, usually just coffee. Sit and talk. Well, every day at the same time for the last 12 years that we've been here.
Gummison still uses the flour cans, ovens, and recipes handed down by former owners of the shop. Brick Flynn, previous owner for 20 years, still works here. He and Jim arrive at 2 a.m. every day to start the baking. Were you a baker before you bought this?
I worked for King Soopers for 12 years, and then I also started out when I was in high school at Mrs. Harvey's here in Longmont. It's no longer in business, but it's up on 11th Avenue.
You can still read the sign.
Yeah, we made about 500-600 cakes a day there.
How much coffee do you serve here? How many tankards?
How many tankards? That's a good question. I would say we probably served in the neighborhood of 60 to 80 pots a day.
With a seating capacity of how many?
40.
That's 2 pots apiece.
Of course, that free refill helps that out.
How many customers do you estimate that you have? You estimated the coffee for me.
Well, they come on different days, but we get between 250 to 350 a day, and sometimes 400 in here. And we normally make about 100 dozen cookies a week for IBM.
What flavor do IBMers prefer in cookies?
Well, we do our big 4 for IBM: peanut butter, chocolate chip, oatmeal, raisin, and sugar. When we first started closing on Mondays, someone from the staff or someone like that from Central Presbyterian accused us of disrupting the theological balance of the community. And, well, we do have a lot of steadies from that direction and, well, from the clergy in general from Longmont.
Uncertain of the reasons for this link between prayer and pastry, we went to the front of the shop and questioned the customers about their reasons for coming here. We even found a few from Central Presbyterian, just as he'd promised.
Well, I'm not supposed to even be here. I'm supposed to be at work at Central.
What brings y'all over here?
The donuts! This is much cheaper than going to a psychiatrist. Right? We take care of all our problems here.
This is where the church business is taken care of. All important matters are settled here and started here.
It's just a real nice place to come. You get to see your friends, you get to see other people.
I just enjoy the talk, the fun that we have, and we just, like has been said, we settle all our problems here. every one of them.
Because they have wonderful donuts.
It's the only place in town to meet. Everybody comes here. My daughters love it. They want to come every time after school. They say, oh, let's go to the Danny Pastry.
Why are you coming to Danny Pastry?
Well, we just come in for coffee and fellowship, basically, yeah.
How often do you come in?
Oh, probably four times a week or so, yeah.
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
I said he comes every chance he gets.
How about yourself?
Every chance I get.
Oh, yeah, I come here primarily to help solve the world's problems, which we do every day.
I like their coffee. I think their pastries is the best in town.
This is one Longmont institution that's not only famous, but also tasty. And I can't stand this anymore. We're going to sign off and get some donuts. This is Pat Bruington for Longmont Cable News, Channel 3.
Ballet has long been an art form that has captured the hearts of many a young girl. But what about the many adults who didn't discover this dance form until later in their lives? In Longmont, there is such a group that is battling the wages of age and atrophy to achieve personal success in ballet. We traveled to Backstage Ballet on Main Street to find out why they do it.
This class is more of a beginning level, like I say, for the lady that's always wanted to dance and try ballet but didn't have the opportunity at a young age to do it, and they're starting it now at a later age.
What are your expectations for your students?
Basically, just feeling real comfortable with their bodies and the joy of dancing. It's good exercise and it's fun, and I feel it's a lot more fun to dance than to just go through calisthenics or exercises. And it's an art form. My expectations would be that they work, at their own ability towards a certain goal that they choose for themselves. I don't feel like my adult beginning ballet dancer should set expectations to becoming a professional dancer at a late age, but just towards improving their technique week after week and just enjoying it as they're doing it. The hardest thing is if you haven't had any movement classes for several years, it takes a while just to get used to moving and getting your brain to do what your legs want to do. For the years that you don't do something, it takes a little bit longer to get back into the swing of things. It's much easier the more you do it. In every class, people will come back the second class and say it was much easier than the first class, and the third and fourth class get easier and easier for them. So it just gets, practice makes perfect.
I personally have a passion for ballet, and I love it, and I've kept up on it over the years. And then I had my daughters who started dancing when they were about 6, 7 years old, and it was something that I'd wanted to do, and so I love the art form, the music, the grace. So I just started up again. As far as personal achievement goes, I would say that just to be able to go as far as I can personally, maybe to be able to get past the point of being able to work at the bar and being able to dance a bit, just for personal satisfaction. Also to be with my daughters, come to classes with them sometimes, it's fun. It's a challenge, you know, and it's something that you can do strictly for yourself, get yourself out of your everyday world and create a bit.
I've always kind of wanted to know if I could do it, you know?
So your expectations differ from the reality of taking it? In what way?
I know I can't do it professionally now. It's too late for that, but it's good, and it tones up your muscles and strengthens.
Just for grace and poise and strengthening and toning muscles. That's why I got into it. I wasn't very graceful before I got into this. I feel good about myself, getting some good, healthy exercising and enjoying it at the same time. That's the way I like to exercise, is to enjoy it. It's like to keep performing in recitals and that sort of thing. I don't want to make a career out of it at this point, but just to get better and stronger at it and just keep performing.
Why did you decide to get involved in it again?
Well, let's see. I've got a mirror fetish, and I've got serious masochistic tendencies. No, I like feeling like I've done something. There's accomplishments that you can see one week to the next, whereas some jobs, it takes years to find out that you did something well. You get a chance to find out if you're doing better 1 week after the other. And I like seeing my body move right. I like the grace that it gives me, and I like being around all these other people too. It's fun having a class. It's not so much fun doing it by yourself. This is not something that I intend for a career. I've got another job that I work at. It would be nice if sometime or another in my life I got into a show where I got paid for it at least once. It would be fun. I'd like to do that, but that's a fun fantasy. That's not something that I'm counting on. So it's fun being around all the girls. I don't mind that at all. So.
This is Darcy Bonfils for Longmont Cable News. Skyline High School is once again offering their fall vocal musical concert tonight at Vance Brand Auditorium. 4 choir groups will be performing at this event, doing a variety of musical themes. Longmont Cable News watched a rehearsal and spoke with Chuck Albers, director of the choir groups.
The groups that you'll be seeing will be my sophomore choir, mainly made up of sophomores, although we do have some juniors and seniors in there. My girls' choir, called the Falconaires, and there are about 24, 25 girls there. My concert choir, Skyline Singers, made up of 30 or so junior and seniors. And my jazz choir, which is about 20 of my best singers, along with a really top-notch rhythm section. We'll do on the average of 4 to 5 performances here in the Vance Brand Auditorium. During the Christmas season, Skyline Singers and or Jazz Choir will go out and perform in the community. And so if people would like us to come out, they need to get a hold of me here at Skyline High School, and if we're available, we'll come. The other groups will go out and perform in the public schools in the springtime. So we can do with Skyline and Jazz an average of 10 to 12 performances during the year. I hope to be able to bring more and more students involved into the vocal music program as time goes along. I hope to be able to tap the junior highs and get the 9th graders, get them involved right away. I look at these, at my students as, first of all, of course, when they're with me, they're performers. But when they leave the high school situation, some of them will go on into college, some of them may even sing in college choirs. But the bulk of them will not do that. They'll be musical consumers. And I'm hoping that through the work that we do, we'll help them to develop a taste in other forms of music, as well as the stuff that they listen to right now. I hope to see some good performances. I hope to see a lot of musical growth. And I hope the kids have a good time performing for their audience. And I hope to see a good-sized audience as well.
This is Darcy Bonfils for Longmont Cable News.
Longmont's current public library, opened in 1972, is only half the size originally planned for the facility back in 1970. 13th on the city's capital improvements plan now is library expansion, a $1.6 million fund to build the other half of this facility. At last night's study session, the Library Planning Task Force, appointed 18 months ago, gave its report findings to City Council. The report echoed the city's priorities for expanding the library facilities. Longmont Cable News spoke with spokesperson Dale Bernard.
There were many goals and objectives, but basically the task force found that since the community's grown so much since the library occupied its present building, that the library is already strained as far as floor space goes, as far as the efficiency of the present system for handling information. And their recommendation was that the facility needs to be expanded, and also that several library functions, specifically cataloging and circulation, need to be automated in order to more efficiently handle the growing population. To give you an example, the library is presently adequate for, say, a circulation of 270,000 items. Last year we circulated over 430,000 items. So you can see we are cramped for space. Also, all of those functions now have to be done manually, and they could be done much more efficiently if the circulation system were automated.
Parking is also a problem at the library. The expansion plan calls for the addition of 11,000 square feet in underground parking, plus 22,000 square feet in interior library space, which would exactly double the current library's size. This expansion would be located at the corner of 4th Avenue and Kimbark, over the current annex building and parking lot. The expansion would provide more private carols, eliminate crowding in high-traffic areas, and widen the narrow aisles now between the shelves. Longmont Cable News spoke with Library Director B. Malchow about reviewing the 1970 drawings for the library design.
This is the drawing of the building that we planned before we moved into our present building. It shows both halves of the building that were planned. This is the amount that we currently have. This much is our present building with the entrance coming in this way. This is the amount that would be built in the new building. We would have the total drawing as you see it here. Along here is the temporary wall that will come down when the new building goes in. This will be the new entrance that adjoins the mall. This half will be the part that we're proposing to build with the $1 6/10 million that we get. It would be comprised.
These drawings and the city's models for a 3-story library as part of a civic center block between 3rd and 4th Avenues have been in the planning stages for over 10 years, but Longmont voters will soon decide whether to give the go-ahead for completing Phase 2 of the library. Projected city revenues will fund only through number 11 on the capital improvements list, and the library project is number 13. The library expansion is one of many capital improvements waiting to see whether voters pass or disapprove the 1-cent sales tax increase on next Tuesday's ballot. For Longmont Cable News, this is Pat Bruington.
Almost half of the projects on the capital improvement list, or 12 out of 31, deal with road improvements. Prime victims of the monumental growth that Longmont has seen in the recent past, these roads are suffering from undue wear and tear by higher than anticipated traffic volumes. The roads slated for improvement are proposed to be financed with proceeds from the sales tax increase on the November 8th ballot. The primary roads are the main arterials on the north and west side of town. Hoover Road, Nelson, 17th Avenue and 9th Avenue are the main streets pegged for this improvement. Most of the work involves widening these arterials to bring the streets up to national road standards. 3 of the road improvement projects will be funded by other sources in the city, with the developer of the Twin Peaks Mall picking up the tab for improvements to Hoover Road and the Diagonal near the proposed mall site, and the county will be paying for a segment of improvements to Hoover Road. Improvements to the remaining 9 projects should cost the city nearly $3 million over the next 5 years. This is Darcy Bonfils for Longmont Cable News.
Maybe your budget is low and your time is cramped, but you yearn to travel to exotic places and experience new sensations of sight, smell, sound, touch, and taste. If that's your idea of entertainment, Longmont resident Norma Ewalt's cookbook, Decadent Dinners and Lascivious Lunches, may be the answer. Norma has traveled widely and delights in the unusual. Her cookbook tells you how to transport yourself and someone special to a foreign land for a special meal and a whole evening of fantasies and pleasures right in your own home. Norma, what was the inspiration for your cookbook?
Well, it was a long, happy marriage. I was married to a man for 25 years that loved to share these experiences with me. And as I lived alone after his death for about 10 years, I looked around me and saw a lot of people that were sort of playing out scenarios. They weren't really living. At least I didn't think they were really living. And I thought there was a lot of zest in my life, and I might share that with them. And the only way I could do it, of course, would be through a book. I couldn't get up on a podium and get people in to listen to me to say, hey, you're missing a lot in your life, you know. One thing led to another, and I put it in a book form, hoping that it might inspire some other people to shake off some of their inhibitions and get out of these stereotyped roles and live it up a little bit, even if it was just at mealtime.
By following the recipes and the hints about how to construct just the right atmosphere, and by examining the illustrations created by Longmont artist Kathy Sherman, you can go all over the world and even way out west. The recipe Norma's making now, she made often when she was in Mexico.
We're going to start with half a cup of brown sugar and about a half a cup of butter, or half butter and half margarine. Now I'm going to melt this together over a medium to low heat. I'm going to use 2 bananas and simply peel the bananas. Don't let this burn. have to watch it a little bit because sugar tends to burn quickly if you don't keep an eye on it. But I'm going to peel the banana, then I'm going to split it lengthwise. And for ease of service, I think I'm going to cut it in two again. So I have four pieces of banana. Then we'll do the second one, since we're going to have our guest with us, the one that we're entertaining for our decadent dinner. Now, when the brown sugar and the butter melts fairly uniformly, and it'll create a rather thick syrup. And as soon as it does that, you place the bananas in that mixture. So I'm going to drop them in. I think I'll put a little cinnamon in. We're going to have rum with this tonight. You can use cognac. You could use a banana liqueur. These are just lightly coated with this caramelized brown sugar. I'm going to set them off the flame, and I'm going to turn the flame down a little bit lower. Now, if you have an electric stove and you're going to flame something, you can use a candle. And I must caution you about doing any flaming dish. The vapor is what ignites. Now I'm going to hold it and just swirl it lightly. And when it warms, as it warms, the vapors will release in this. And as soon as it's warm, it will ignite. We have it flaming. We're going to pour it flaming over the bananas. And we're going to let it flame out. And then there's no alcohol left in the dish. It's all gone in the flame. It gives you a little rummy flavor. But that's Bananas Foster. Now, you serve it over ice cream, your favorite, either vanilla or one of the nut, like butter pecan or something of that sort, and you ladle some of the hot sauce over that. And you can serve it either hot or cold. It's divine hot, so enjoy.
How's the book been selling? How's it doing?
I've had to do all my own promotion. I've had to take care of all of the sales. I now have distributors all over the country. B. Dalton carries it nationally. There are places in Longmont, may I say. The Pots and Paraphernalia has it in Longmont. There are many in Boulder, many in Denver. But I have just come back from a 6,000-mile trip to Massachusetts, and I worked my way there, and I worked my way back doing national TV shows and made other personal appearances. And every place I go, it has been very well received. I've been warmed by the reception, let's say. The sales in Boulder and Denver have been tremendous. And we've sold about 1,000 books a month in this area. And from what I hear, for doing it all on my own, that's a very good record.
Well, I'm dying for some Bananas Foster. This is Marty Durlin for Longmont Cable News. This is artist Rick Stoner in his attic studio in Longmont, working in his current favorite medium, pastels. Stoner grew up in Cortez, Colorado, where he saw vibrant colors, the reds and yellows of the desert, the purples and blues of the mountains. As a teacher of printmaking and drawing at CSU, he concentrated on form and discipline. But it's color and light that intrigue him now. And he's found inspiration in his Emory Street neighborhood, where he's lived now for 5 years.
I grew up in a small town. I like this kind of an atmosphere a lot better. And it was nice to get here. When we got here, it was like, gee, people talk to you in stores, and and that's the kind of an atmosphere that I'd grown up in, and I wanted to get back to.
What inspires you?
One thing that does is seeing other people's work. I think that's very important That's always been a strong inspiration for me. That for one thing. And just seeing things too, like I see a particular person, an individual, that to me looks like I'd love to paint that person. I mean, just seeing that person would be an inspiration. Seeing something from around here would be an inspiration. Seeing a certain lighting situation, a shadow, a light situation, a color situation. You know, I don't think that it ever really leaves my mind. I'm constantly looking at the visual aspect of everything, making statements about my neighbor's house, about my neighbor's clothesline, you know, what they hang out for their wash. And you know, nobody really cares what anybody hangs out for their wash, but it's interesting. I mean, it makes a statement about what happened that day. And that's why I deal a lot with it's important for me to make the time of day important, the brightness of the day, the lights. I mean, if it's a morning painting, if it's an evening painting, if it's a cloudy day or a bright sunshine summer day or winter day, I mean, that's important. I need to set up that to give that information. In terms of artists in general, I don't see anybody making any real earth-shattering statements right now. I think that artists throughout history, as far as I'm concerned, have been, what they're talking about is their own particular time, their time frame, how they lived, where they lived. If you look at some of the work that I've done, maybe people will look, they'll see that, and they'll see a clothesline with some people's laundry hanging on it, and the next time they hang their laundry out, maybe they'll see some art there too. Maybe it'll make them change their perspective about the way they look at things.
T-shirts have become one of the most popular items of daily clothing in America. They're soft, they're comfortable, and they're cheap. They come in a variety of colors and styles, from pastels to bright, basic colors, and from the basic undershirt to French cut, baseball, and football jersey styles. But perhaps most important, T-shirts can be stamped with almost any message you'd care to send to the world. Far more popular these days than wearing your heart on your sleeve is wearing your message on your chest.
Well, we have about 1,000 transfers and just about every subject that you'd want.
What are some of your most popular designs that you sell?
Probably Colorado transfers, a lot of unicorns and balloons, rainbows, mushrooms. Those are real big at the time. It changes a lot of the time.
What's top on the list right now?
Probably unicorns. Yeah, that we probably sell more unicorns than we do anything else right now. I just think that's the fad now is unicorns, and then next week it might be raccoons. You know, it changes a lot. I thought if I had one unicorn that was alive, you could make $1 million. You know, because just to have people come look at it.
Sell a lot of T-shirts that way.
The Superman emblem we never run out of, because when we do, we have about 400 mad kids around town. We sell a lot of that, and it's one of our most popular ones.
You have 3 different areas to your business here. Can you explain those?
Well, we do about a third of our business is custom silk screening for businesses and that sort of thing on hats and shirts and jackets. A lot of people buy shirts just for activities like, well, we've made them for pig roasts and pub crawls and that sort of thing. A third of our business is the uniform business. We did about 100 softball teams this year. And a third of our business is the retail business here. In the front of the store, people come in and have transfers put on or lettering. We'll letter about anything on a shirt.
How do you silk screen something?
Well, silk screening is a photo process. I use a photo process. It's a screen. It's not made out of silk anymore. It's an old Chinese art, and they use silk, but it's made out of nylon. It's very fine mesh nylon. And you put a photo emulsion on it and expose it to light. And where the light hits the emulsion, it hardens, and where the light doesn't hit, it washes out. So now you have an opening in the screen that the ink will go through. And that's basically it.
Then you just lay each T-shirt down and ink it with this?
Yes, each one is inked individually.
What do you think is the reason that T-shirts have gotten so popular this way, with sayings and that kind of thing on them?
Well, one of the things I think is that they're inexpensive. That's one thing, I think. I think everybody wants to say or do their own thing, and they have something to say, and they put it out there and say it to the world.
What's the weirdest transfer you have in the store right now?
What we have right now is not really a transfer, but it's a shirt, and I'll show it to you. It's from the movie Alien. That gets 2 types of comments. If they're over 12, it's gross, and if they're under 12, it's awesome.
3-day T-shirt. Who wears this kind of stuff?
Little kids with a lot of money.
According to CU sociologist Howard Higman, wearing a T-shirt slogan is like crying out, "Hey, look at me, see who I am." The big social problem as we near 1984, Higman thinks, is not a loss of privacy to Big Brother, as George Orwell predicted, but anonymity, the discovery that the people who don't know us also don't care what we do or what we think. So using our walls, our bumpers, and our clothes, we try to tell the strangers around us what we're like, even though they never asked. Longmont's family counselor, Ann Coffman, has a different view. As a counselor and a psychologist, what do you think are the reasons that people wear these T-shirts in public?
I think in our society where we're highly technological right now and isolated quite often, that we have 2 very strong needs. One is to be an individual and to be unique and special, and so that's one of the ways that you can express that is by a T-shirt. And the other is to be connected, as we are in our world today, and although it's very hard sometimes to feel that way. So one of the ways that you get connected is to wear a T-shirt like someone else's, and then you're part of a group. So you have both needs.
Psychologically, is it better for you to wear a T-shirt expressing your opinion or put a bumper sticker on your car or write graffiti on an anonymous wall somewhere?
Well, it just depends on basically how narcissistic you are. You know, if you are one who's really individualistic and can wear a T-shirt and that really expresses a political opinion or whatever, then you wear it on your body. If you are one who wants to sort of mask it but stay in the shelter of your car, you put it on your car. Or you might put it on both.
Is there anything else that you'd like to point out about T-shirts that I haven't asked you about?
Well, I think that T-shirts can sometimes also make a very strong political statement, and sometimes people wear T-shirts to express how they feel about some sort of political persuasion or view or approach about life as well.
Can you give us an example of that?
Well, I have a T-shirt on today that sort of expresses, it's sort of a hidden message, but it says, "Ladies, Sewing Circle, and Terraced Society." And, you know, people can make whatever they want to out of that.
No matter what you put on them or what your reasons for wearing them, T-shirts can really be a lot of fun. This is Pat Bruington for Longmont Cable News, Channel 3.